A Separate Piece, written by John Knowles, was published in 1959. However, the setting of the story is a boys' boarding school in New England in the early years of World War II. John Knowles wrote the book in the post-war period. This period is known for how productive it was. Men came home from war, and the economy was as strong as ever. People were focused on having families, leading to baby booms. They also were interested in moving from rural areas to suburbs. Although life within America was good, outside the people's worries and on the other side of the world, the threat of a third world war was starting. The country was optimistic, with hopes of the future becoming even better. Other famous works of the time period were The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, written by C.S. Lewis, and The Lord of the Flies, written by William Golding. John Knowles was born in Fairmont, West Virginia. At the age of 15, he was sent to a boarding school called Philip Exeter Academy, which was a military prep school similar to Devon, which was the boarding school within A Separate Piece. After high school graduation, he took part in an Air Force program. Upon completing that, he went to Yale, where he later obtained his bachelor's degree. After working as a journalist in Europe for a few years after Yale, he returned to the United States, taking a position at Holiday magazine as an editor. Thornton Wilder was intrigued and encouraged John Knowles when he was working and started working on his book, A Separate Piece. After publishing A Separate Piece, it was so successful, John Knowles was able to quit his magazine job and take time to focus on his writing. A Separate Piece was later made into a movie in 1972. The book received the Richard and Hilda Rosenthal Foundation Award, along with the William Faulkner Award. John Knowles wrote other books, including a sequel to A Separate Piece called Peace Breaks Out, and short stories. However, his first success was his biggest, and none of his other works received as high of status. John Knowles died November 29, 2001, at the age of 75. He died of an illness. A Separate Piece, when categorized into a genre, is considered historical fiction, or post-war fiction. The story A Separate Piece is about two different friends, Jean and Phineas, who attend a boys' boarding school called Devon Prep School. It is set in the early years of World War II. The story focuses on Jean's psychological battles, which he fights within himself based mostly on events and circumstances, which involved his closest friend. The novel intertwines with World War II in the aspect of the boys' daily lives and struggles that they both face. The relationship between the friends, like the war, changes over dramatic events that take place. Setting. The story of A Separate Piece is focused in New Hampshire at a private boys' boarding school called Devon. It starts in the year 1958, but it quickly flashes back to the years 1942 to 1943. The look of the campus is very sophisticated and elegant, with Georgian, Gothic, and colonial-themed buildings and beautiful scenery. Jean himself says that Devon is sometimes considered the most beautiful school in New England. Knowles, page 12. He says that the landscape and all of the buildings live together in harmony. In the first chapter of the novel, Jean gives us a good description of the campus. He says that Devon did not stand isolated behind walls and gates, but emerged naturally from the town which has produced it. Knowles, page 11. During Jean's time at Devon, World War II is going on, but in Devon, the boys who are not seniors are aware of the war but are not directly affected by it. The boys were able to live their lives without the fear of the war hanging over their heads. Jean says that bombs in Central Europe were completely unreal to us here, not because we couldn't imagine it, but because our place here was too fair for us to accept something like that. We spent that summer in complete selfishness, I am happy to say. The people in the world who could be selfish in the summer of 1942 were a small band, and I'm glad we took advantage of it. Many specific locations on the Devon campus play significant roles within the novel, such as the tree beside the Devon River and the marble staircase in the Academy building. The way that the setting changes over the course of the novel also plays an integral part of the story. Within the first part of the novel, the summer session, there is a carefree, fun atmosphere around the campus. The boys are able to go outside and play games and enjoy the weather. Finney is the face of the summer session. He characterizes the carefree, selfish atmosphere that Jean describes. But over time, as the weather begins to shift over to winter, the atmosphere at Devon begins to shift as well. Just as the weather begins to become cool, things at Devon become more strict, serious, and dark. The reality of the war really begins to sink into the boys' minds as they become older, and one of their classmates escapes the war with a mental illness. The face of the summer session is also gone due to physical injuries, and a new face moves in. Brinker Hadley comes to Devon at the start of the new session and takes over Finney's position as the head of the group of the boys. Brinker has a much more mature, strict attitude in comparison to Phineas, which parallels with the setting of the novel. In a sense, the setting itself becomes a symbol within the novel. Symbols. There are numerous symbols in this novel, from people and their actions to areas within the setting and big events in the novel. The largest and most occurring one is the season of summer, fall, and winter itself, because it is over a longer amount of time than the other symbols. That does not imply that the other symbols did not have a longer lasting effect. In the summer, there was freedom and happiness in the youth of the students of Devon Prep School. There was no worries. Even when the war was developing, they were all naive to what people were experiencing outside the school. Devon Prep was their own little closed-off world in a bubble. Jean says, "We spent that summer in complete selfishness." Knowles 30. Fall comes and the bubble of the world of Devon is popped when a terrible event happens that symbolizes the seriousness of the war and the realization that there is evil in the world. Not everything is as it seems. Finney fell off the tree due to Jean shaking the branch they were jumping off of. Jean changed his and Finney's lives permanently. In the beginning of Separate Peace, Jean speaks of the tree stating that it looks smaller. That shows that he has changed and grown wiser. The climax of that change was Finney's fall from the tree. Fall turns to winter, and the life doesn't get any better. Things get harder. Students are leaving Devon to go to war voluntarily or by draft. Lastly, another big point is the title of the book itself. There is a war within Jean's self that Jean must make peace with. It is a separate peace because it is the struggle that only Jean can help himself fix. With his visit to Devon Prep School, he finds that peace. Point of view. Point of view is the angle of considering things, which shows us the opinion or feelings of the individuals involved in a situation. In literature, point of view is the method of narration that an author uses to let the readers hear and see what takes place in a story, poem, essay, or other written work. In A Separate Peace, written by John Knowles, the narrator is Jean, and the story is told in first person. The book is narrated by Jean, returning to Devon, the school of his teenage years, as an adult, probably in his 30s. The point of view, being first person, is critical to the story because it allows readers to really empathize Jean as he makes decisions. In addition to allowing readers to identify with Jean, the point of view is important for allowing readers over time to make a connection with the character, to sympathize and connect to him. The first person point of view also reveals Jean's true feelings within his thoughts, and uncovers the psychological battles Jean faces within himself. The narrator is biased due to the story being told in first person, so readers do not know whether or not they are necessarily learning the complete truth. The narrator's mind changes within the story, and readers can easily be confused by what is on accident or what is on purpose, due to the fact that Jean himself is confused. It is important to know that the narrator is the adult, Jean, because as he retells events, even as an adult, he still cannot fully comprehend what had happened within the decisions he made and the repercussions of his actions. Readers cannot tell whether he is confused, in denial, or just a compulsive liar. The narrator goes from telling the story as if it were present day and currently happening, to spontaneously throwing in some present day when the book was written, comments like, "I didn't know then," or going on about Blitzball and how Blitzball was the surprise of the summer, page 39, and making comments such as that. Perhaps this is because the events within which he described were so traumatic, and he went into such vivid detail when recollecting the events, that he possibly felt he was reliving them. And the comments he made were impulsive and crucial for bringing him back to reality. It is imperative to note that the narrator is telling his story after a number of years, and that he is filtering what he is narrating. This is vital information to consider because Jean didn't just endure the events and confront the situations he describes in the story yesterday, they are past memories. He has grown since the times he reminisces of, and it is essential to remind readers that he has been influenced by things following his years at Devon. Point of view is fundamental in the fact that it can make or break the understanding of a story. If a separate piece had been told by a narrator not even in the story, then readers wouldn't even be able to be capable to connect to Jean, and would most likely think that the decisions Jean made were out of complete and utter jealousy, or that he was just a malicious character. Point of view in a separate piece, like in any story being told in first person, is critical to enrich the readers with a psychological foundation of who the narrator is as a person, what type of character he or she is, and allows readers to determine the climactic moments within the story by being able to identify how the character's thoughts are typically composed. Structure. The novel starts with one of the main characters, Jean, as an older man going to visit the prep school he used to attend as a teenager. He was specifically visiting the tree and stairs at Devon that had significant meaning to him, also foreshadowing further events in the story. It is important that it starts out with that to establish the rest of the novel would be a flashback. What also supports this claim is the fact that the story is told in the past tense. What is interesting about the flashback and the structure of the novel is that it never physically returns back to Jean's character at the beginning of his flashback. It is as if the story made him realize how he truly felt about Phineas in the war at the time. It ends with Jean making a realization about the war. Though the war was just getting serious at the beginning, Jean says, "My war ended before I ever put on a uniform. I was on active duty all my time at school. I killed my enemy there." Knowles, page 204. His enemy is referring to his best friend Finney's death. He then questions whether he ever changed or if Phineas was ever the enemy, if he ever attacked at all. Knowles, page 204 again. The war ended between the two characters, but there is still one within Jean that supports the idea that it existed there the whole time. That is why Finney always claimed there was not a war. He did not want to believe that there could ever be a difference between him and another person, especially his best friend. That is structured in the events that were foreshadowed in the beginning of the novel. In the structure of the flashback, a reader can see bits of the older Jean's thoughts of the events from his past. Analyzing the thoughts of Jean, it can be deciphered which age of Jean really is doing the thinking at certain points throughout a separate piece. The structure uses the spacing of events and character thoughts very well to highlight these points. It is organized in an unseemingly recognizable way. What is theme in literature? Theme is, in the most simplest terms, the moral of the story. It is the lesson readers should receive that is significant to the entire text. Theme also can be what the story mostly focuses on. Stories often have a few themes, but typically there is a central theme that ties the entire work together. Within a separate piece, friendship, adolescence, youth and growing up, warfare, identity, identifying one's true self, reflection, memories in the past, and a combination of jealousy and fear are a few words to sum up the major themes within the written work. The one to most fully take to heart is the sense of identity. Identity is such an importance within the novel, especially due to the fact that the two main characters, Jean, who is the narrator, and Phineas, are almost complete opposites. Jean is more of the academic type. He's the brains, while Phineas is the athlete. Jean feels he needs to up the ante in academics when Phineas displays his athletic abilities. Jean feels a constant comparison between himself and his close friend. He also always allows himself to be persuaded by Phineas, and finds difficulty standing up for himself and finding his true identity and place due to the fact that he feels he is in constant competition. This can be seen, for example, on page 34 when Jean says, "I hated it. I never got inured to the jumping. At every meeting, the limbs seemed higher, thinner, the deeper water harder to reach. Every time when I got myself into position to jump, I felt a flash of disbelief that I was doing anything so perilous, but I always jumped. Otherwise, I would have lost face with Phineas, and that would have been unthinkable." Later on, due to events that occur, Jean struggles but tries to create an identity for himself outside of Phineas. Warfare is made obvious within the story. The setting of the story is within the early years of World War II. During this time, children were forced to grow up, losing their sense of youth and childhood. Not only was there war in the world around them, but war also occurred in their personal lives, especially in Jean. The book asserts that we all identify enemies in the world around us, that we make it our life mission to go against them just to have an object for our fear and hate. While warfare provides a deeper meaning than just the setting, so does the point of view when it comes to the major premise of memory and reflection within the story. The book is told by the narrator looking back, so the story is meant to be taken as a flashback. Memory proves to be undependable within the story. Not only does it fail to remember certain events within the story, but it alters others. Reflection is important in the sense that it reveals that due to the point of view, there are many things that are forgotten and changed, but people still present these forgotten and changed things as fact and truth. Jealousy is just one of the negative emotions in A Separate Peace, others being fear and bitterness. The story reveals how jealousy drives some to do unthinkable things, and then those people who do it understand at least due to their drive. Fear, being the last theme to wrap the story up, leads readers to see that many teens are afraid of the future. However, fear is also revealed in one character as a fear of himself, and he fears the things he is capable of. While many of the themes weren't the most positive, each gave the story the meaning, and the central theme of finding your own identity revealed to readers something crucial: making peace within yourself. A Separate Peace critique. We as readers found the novel A Separate Peace intriguing and a definite page-turner. It was Knowles' biggest success, winning awards we feel it deserved, for example, the William Faulkner Award. It conveyed a deep meaning on a psychological basis and revealed complex insights into the human mind on an emotional level, particularly conveyed by the author's use of point of view, first person. The author presents the idea in his novel how war corrupts teenagers and youth by taking away their innocence and forcing maturity early, and how people's pasts really impact their future. Knowles successfully gets readers to see his perspective. His use of diction and syntax were also critical, key elements used to paint a picture of Gene's varying emotions and feelings as he partakes in an emotional roller coaster ride throughout his time at Devon. The book A Separate Peace is a timeless, coming-of-age, modern classic that teenagers will enjoy due to the relatable feelings and experiences characters within the story endure. We recommend the story to teenagers and up due to the fact younger audiences wouldn't be able to appreciate the enriching morale the story presents to readers.